South Carolina is filled with places that call themselves historic, but a few towns are old enough to have watched the state itself take shape around them. This countdown follows 12 communities whose roots reach back to the colonial era or the first years of the new republic. And every one of them still exists today. But founded can mean several things. A settlement may begin years before it is formally laid out. A town may operate for decades before incorporation. So this list follows the earliest defensible origin of the present community. It also notes the places where the story is more complicated. One town was burned during the Revolution. It later shifted when the railroad arrived. Another traces its story to a colonial township, but that township did not immediately become the town people know today. Near the top are places whose streets were already part of South Carolina life before the United States existed. If you enjoy American towns where the modern map is layered over centuries of history, subscribe to American Lens. We begin in the Upstate. Number 12. Pendleton. Pendleton was created in 1790 as the seat of Pendleton County. It stood along the old Cherokee Path. The town was named for Judge Henry Pendleton, a Revolutionary War veteran. In 1800, commissioners produced a formal plan with dozens of lots. That plan gave the settlement a structure still recognizable in its historic core. Scots-Irish veterans settled in the region. Wealthy Lowcountry families later built summer homes in the Upstate. For a time, Pendleton was one of the most influential communities in Upper South Carolina. Today, it survives as a living small town. It remains a reminder of the era when the Upstate was changing from frontier territory into organized counties and communities. Number 11. Newberry. Newberry County was created in 1785. In 1789, John Coate donated 2 acres for public buildings. A plan was drawn for the county seat. Within a decade, Newberry Courthouse had a courthouse and jail. It also had homes, taverns, shops, and postal service. Courthouse towns were crucial in early South Carolina. They concentrated law, trade, travel, and news in one place. Most people around them still lived on farms. Newberry remained small for much of the antebellum era. That is part of its story. It began as a practical administrative village. Then it slowly accumulated the institutions that turned a courthouse settlement into a permanent town. Number 10. Spartanburg. Spartanburg traces its town origins to 1789. That year, county officials selected a central location for a jail and courthouse. The settlement grew around an open public space. That space later became Morgan Square. The town itself was incorporated in 1831. Its name grew from the region's revolutionary heritage. But early Spartanburg was a small legal and agricultural center. It was not yet the larger city people recognize today. Industrialization changed that. Rail connections helped reshape Spartanburg. Cotton mills helped transform it into one of the Upstate's major cities. Yet beneath the modern skyline is a town plan born in the first years of the American Republic. Number 9. Columbia. Columbia was different because it was created deliberately. In 1786, South Carolina selected a new capital near the geographic center of the state. The decision responded partly to the growing political weight of the upcountry. Columbia was laid out as a planned capital. Its broad streets reflected that ambition. The decision marked a major shift. Charleston had dominated colonial South Carolina, but population and political influence were moving inland. Government followed. Columbia therefore tells a larger story than its age alone. Its creation marks the moment when South Carolina's political center of gravity began moving away from the coast. Number 8. Winnsboro. Several years before the Revolution, Richard Wynne moved into the area that became Fairfield County. By 1780, the village known as Winnsboro had roughly 20 dwellings. In 1785, the settlement was laid out and chartered. The petition involved Wynne and other local leaders. Its location placed it inside the Revolutionary struggle. Lord Cornwallis spent part of the hard winter of 1780 and 1781 in the area. This came after the British defeat at King's Mountain. Winnsboro later became known for education. It also became famous for its town clock, but its deeper importance is survival. It passed from Revolutionary Village to Courthouse and Market Town. Then it endured the Cotton Era, war, Reconstruction, and modernization. And it never disappeared from the map. Number 7. Camden. Camden is one of the hardest towns on this list to reduce to a single date. In 1730, colonial governor Robert Johnson ordered a series of interior townships. The Wateree River Township was surveyed in 1733. It was called Fredericksburg, but the intended town site was never settled. Permanent settlement developed later. Quakers arrived in the region in the 1750s. Merchant Joseph Kershaw established businesses at Pine Tree Hill in 1758. The settlement became known as Camden in 1768. Then came war. Camden became one of the most important revolutionary locations in the South. The Battle of Camden in 1780 ended in a severe American defeat. The region remained central to the struggle for the Carolina backcountry. So should Camden be dated to 1733, 1758, or 1768. Different milestones tell different stories. For this countdown, 1768 is the safer date for the identity of the present town. Either way, its roots are unmistakably colonial. Number 6. Cheraw. Cheraw grew where the Great Pedee River made trade possible deep into the interior. European settlers were moving into the region by the 1730s. In 1766, Eli Kershaw laid out the town that became Cheraw. Its location made it valuable. Agricultural goods moved through a river-based trading network. Livestock also passed through the area. Naval stores and other products traveled along the same system. Cheraw repeatedly found itself in the path of war. During the Revolution, St. David's Church was used as a hospital. During the Civil War, the same church again served as a hospital. The building still stands. It gives the town a tangible link to two conflicts separated by generations. From here, the countdown moves firmly into the first half of the 18th century. Number 5. Orangeburg. Orangeburg contains one of the most confusing date questions on the list. The city's history traces settlement in the area to an Indian trader in 1704. But the organized Orangeburg Township came later. South Carolina's colonial government created a township program in 1730. In 1735, roughly 200 Swiss, German, and Dutch immigrants formed a community near the North Edisto River. That 1735 community is the stronger date for the town's recognizable development. That is why Orangeburg appears here rather than above Beaufort or Georgetown. Its growth was part of a deliberate effort to strengthen settlement away from Charlestown. Orangeburg endured the Revolution. It later evolved into a regional center. Its history shows why oldest town lists can be misleading. One place may be dated by its first settler. Another may be dated by its formal founding. If you have lived in one of these towns, tell us whether the old history is still visible in everyday life. Because every community ahead reaches back to the early 1700s. Number 4. 96. Few town names in America are as strange. And few histories are as complicated. A trading store is documented at 96 as early as 1730. The settlement grew at a junction of important routes. Those routes connected the Carolina backcountry with Cherokee country and the coast. By the 1770s, 96 had a courthouse and jail. It also had taverns, shops, and homes. Then the Revolution changed everything. 96 became the site of major fighting. That included the 1781 siege around the British Star Fort. After British forces withdrew, the old village was burned. South Carolina authorized a new town nearby in 1783. Then another transformation arrived. The railroad reached the area in 1852. The community shifted about 2 miles east. So the modern town does not sit precisely on the footprint of the colonial settlement. Yet 96 still exists. It still carries the same remarkable name, and it still stands beside the archaeological remains of its earlier self. Number 3. Georgetown. Georgetown was laid out in 1729. It is recognized in South Carolina historical records as the state's third oldest city. Only Charleston and Beaufort are older. Georgetown became an official port of entry in 1732. That allowed regional merchants to trade more directly. They no longer had to route everything through Charleston. Indigo first brought wealth. Rice later transformed the surrounding region. The port connected plantations and merchants to Atlantic trade. But that prosperity was inseparable from enslaved labor. Georgetown also became part of the Revolutionary struggle. British troops occupied the town. Fighting associated with Francis Marion's campaigns occurred in the surrounding region. Its historic district still contains 18th-century buildings. One dwelling dates to around 1737. That makes Georgetown more than a town with an old date. Its streets still preserve a physical scale inherited from colonial South Carolina. Number 2. Beaufort. Beaufort was founded in 1711. It is recognized as South Carolina's second oldest town. Its location on Port Royal Island gave it access to important waterways. Those waterways were essential to the Lowcountry economy. Plantation wealth shaped the town. Rice contributed to that wealth. Indigo also played an important role. Later, Sea Island cotton became especially important. That economy was tied to a system of enslaved labor. During the Civil War, Union forces captured the surrounding sea islands early in the conflict. That made the Beaufort area an important setting for emancipation. It also became important for education. African American military service became part of the region's wartime transformation. That history is now interpreted through Reconstruction-era National Historical Park. The town also preserved a distinctive collection of Lowcountry architecture. Its historic district reflects roughly 3 centuries of history. Broad verandas became a familiar feature of many houses. Some historic structures used tabby. That building material was made partly from oyster shell. Beaufort survived war. It survived hurricanes. It survived political upheaval and enormous economic change. Yet one South Carolina city is older. Number 1. Charleston. Charleston was founded in 1670. That makes it South Carolina's oldest city. The original settlement stood at Albemarle Point. It was located on the west bank of the Ashley River. In 1680, the settlement moved to Oyster Point. That became the site of the present city. The community began as Charlestown. It adopted the name Charleston in 1783. Nearly every major chapter of early South Carolina history passes through this city. Charleston became the colony's dominant port. It also became its political center. Its wealth grew through Atlantic commerce. Plantation agriculture added to that wealth. Those systems depended deeply on the forced labor and trafficking of enslaved Africans and African Americans. Charleston became a stage for the American Revolution. It remained important during the ratification era. Later, the opening of the Civil War unfolded at nearby Fort Sumter. The old exchange was completed in 1771. That building survived to witness generations of political and military history. Charleston earns number 1 because its story reaches back to the beginning of permanent English settlement in the colony. It changed location during its first decade. It changed its name. It survived fires. It survived hurricanes. It survived wars and epidemics. And after repeated rebuilding, it remained. Taken together, these 12 places reveal something easy to miss on a modern map. South Carolina did not grow outward in one clean line. Coastal ports developed for one reason. Planned townships developed for another. Courthouse villages became centers of government. Trading posts connected distant regions. Frontier crossroads drew travelers and merchants. A purpose-built capital reflected changing political power. Some of these places became cities. Some stayed small. Some moved. Some nearly disappeared. But they survived. Which of these 12 towns surprised you most? And which historic South Carolina town would you add? Subscribe to American Lens for more stories about the places, people, and forgotten history behind America's map.